And on this week's Grumpy Gits show, we interview BBC Newsround's Martin Dougan as he talks about the BBC and disability, as well as life after Newsround. It's PDA Month, so we take a look at the great work the PDA Society are doing for both PDAs and their families. And we also look at the issues facing you, the viewers, as we introduce a new segment of viewer questions. All this along with your favourite segments, including stupid questions and what happens next. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and join us for the world's most watched disability podcast.
Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of The Grumpy Gits, the light-hearted disability podcast that won the jury vote but got fucked over in the public vote. Eurovision.
The Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.
As always, I am not alone. I am joined by three titans of industry. What industry? I don't know. Probably best not to think about it. As always, from his lovely home in Leicester, that's Leicester, he is Simon Sansome. How are you, good sir?
I'm exceptionally tired. Exceptionally tired. I've been doing 17-hour days trying to launch the biggest disability app in the world. Yeah, it's like TripAdvisor for disabled people. It's called Snowball. It'll be on the thing. It'll be called Snowball Community, and you can upload anything you like on where you've been, and you can leave a review on how good or bad it is for accessibility.
Is it wise to tell people on an app called Snowball they can upload anything they like from the community? That's asking for trouble, if you ask me.
It is. It genuinely is.
It does have profanity filters.
So, will I be able to type Snowball into Snowball? Or will that get...
Because you're an ambassador for Snowball, you actually get given a name, which I'm going to email to you next week.
How good are the profanity filters? Because back in the day, you couldn't text the word Scunthorpe into the BBC Radio 1.
I'm wondering what Adam's name's going to be. Is it going to be Little Pig?
That'll do, Pig. That'll do. Anyway, I am also joined, you heard from earlier, Mr. Duncan Casburn. How are you doing, my friend?
Mate, I am living up to the grumpy title today. I started a 4-week diet today of shakes and nothing but diet shakes. And I'm just so... I'm so hungry.
So you're going to be a right fucking delight this episode, aren't you?
Oh, mate, just don't piss me off. Yeah.
And finally, he is... quite possibly at the moment, my favourite of the Grumpy Gits, because he's not all milkshake up and pissed off, or giving me a secret name on a disability app. How are you doing, Chris Leasmith?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm not going to do either of those things. I'm not too bad, but we're filming on a 2-week cycle, so not much has changed. I gave the school a bollocking over my boy.
What did they do? What happened? Tell us all, Chris.
Well, he's going up to middle school in September.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a meeting and we basically said this transition period's going to be dragged out a little bit longer, so he gets more transition days to get used to the place. And his old school basically turned round after we'd organised it all and said, actually, we're not sure about this, let's change it all. So then I'd have to go back to my autistic son and say, you're not doing your favourite lesson, you're not meeting your best mates, and the date's changed. So I kind of lost my rag on email and by phone and said that's not happening. And since when do teachers supersede parents? Got it all sorted. They sounded a bit nervous on the phone, so yeah, it's gone back. It did. It sounded like she was sitting on a washing machine when I was speaking to her. I could hear it in her voice, but my email was. I don't think grumpy is the word. It went past that.
Did you send them a picture of you standing next to Adam and seeing how tall you were, and that's why they were scared of you?
No, this Senko was actually in the meeting with me, so she was well aware how big I am.
Are we going to have to rename this the homicidal Gits? Yes. Is that how it's going to work?
the murderous Gits. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
It doesn't have the same ring, does it?
Hello, yes. And welcome to Guilty Till Proven Innocent Gits. Or whatever the hell they call it.
No, but it's all sorted now. So never told my boy. He's going in Monday to play cricket with his mates. So all done and dusted. So apart from that, mate, it's not much has changed.
There we go. Chris Leasmith putting the fear of God in Senko since 2022. Rock and roll. And if you would like Chris to put the fear of God in your Senko, email sponsors@grumpygits.com and let's get this show on the road. Anyway, this went off the rails super quick. Segway, Pearson. Segway. Ridiculous questions. Are we ready? How is Chris Leasmith going to get us all to hate each other this week?
I'm upping my efforts this week, and you'll see why. Anyway, time for the generic. I'm going to call it the boring question, because I don't really care about this, but what gave you nightmares as a kid? Let's start with Simon.
Doctor Who.
Really?
Yeah. And I tell you what it is, it's not the Daleks.
Okay.
It's the Weeping Angels.
I knew it would be that.
When you were a kid?
Yeah. I tell you what, they terrify me.
Sorry? Yeah, I thought they were only fairly new to the canon. I didn't realise they predated the rebooted Doctor Who's.
Well, that's a good point. I'm sure it's them. Or either that, they give me nightmares when Christopher Eccleston was there.
Yeah. I tell you, the Doctor Who that gave me nightmares was they had the mannequins. I remember seeing that as a kid, and I wouldn't go into a department store with my mum for months. I was just petrified that all the mannequins were going to come to life and attack me. That really affected me when I was a kid. I remember that.
Okay, let's go to Adam's same question. What gave you nightmares as a kid?
The book Quindlecracks, about an alligator that lived in the sewers and would come up at night and it wanted to kill the school caretaker. And eventually it got him. And yeah, I was just then terrified. Anytime I walked over a manhole, I'd walk around it, just in case there was a giant alligator down there that was going to fuck me up.
Right, okay.
So yeah.
Same question, Duncan?
Aside from the mannequins, I never saw the whole film, but enough of it, that the original, that I hate clowns. I don't have a fear of clowns. I just really hate them. They make me angry now. Yeah, but there was something about that really disturbed me. I thought that was just clowns. I don't trust them. There's something wrong with them.
Can I re-record my entry because I've just googled it and it didn't come out until 2007.
That's what I was thinking. It's okay, so
no, you stuck with that. Living up to your IQ.
That was tough. Done. Let's go again. Simon, what scared you as a kid? I bet it was Doctor Who.
Predator.
Predator the film, or are you unloading childhood trauma right now?
No, Predator the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and when he goes in the jungle and they get killed one by one, and you see this, you see them get, the different ways they get killed. That was terrifying. But yes, Doctor Who did scare me, and I was a early, a young man, and the Weeping Angels still scare me.
I don't think that's an embarrassing answer, because I was pretty freaked out by those angels, and I'm the same age as Simon, so...
The Weeping Angels remains my favourite Doctor Who episode, though. The first one, I thought it was genius writing, and Stephen Moffat deserves awards for how good that was.
Question 2. Who talks the most? Name the list from 4 to 1 of the Grumpy Gits. I have watched a random episode and counted every word, not including interviews. I want you to name from 4 the person that speaks the least compared to the person who speaks the most, and I will give you the answers after you've named your list.
I would just like to say bollocks to this, because I know exactly where this is going.
No.
Let's beat up Simon Day.
I don't think it is.
Right, okay, let's start with Right, so who have you got for number 4? Who speaks the least on the podcast, Duncan?
You.
Okay, and number 3?
I actually think probably Adam.
Okay, number 2?
And this is where it gets trickier, because when Simon gets on a riff, he gets on a riff. But I actually think it's Simon, then it's me. I think I probably talk the most.
Okay, so you've got Me, Adam, Simon, you. Okay, let's
Yeah.
go to Adam next.
I think you're being fourth, Chris. I
Okay.
think Duncan third, me second, Simon first.
Oh, okay. Simon, same question.
Bollocks that you've counted every word.
On my kid's life, I sat down for 2 hours with my book and counted every single word.
No wonder you were pissed off at the Senko.
I also think it depends on the episode as well, but I think I agree with Adam there. Chris, Duncan, Adam, me.
Okay, so the list goes: me in last place with 1,518 words. Adam in third with 2,138 words. Simon in second, 2,971. And Duncan, first place, 4,383 words. I think it was. I think it was season 2, episode 4. But don't forget, it was me editing as well. So, if it was Duncan editing, he had that many words. I was thinking, what's going on? He's just letting himself speak all the time.
Probably...
Question 3: at your peak physical condition in your life, name from last to first who is the strongest grumpy git. Let's start with Duncan. Who do you think was the least strongest out of all 4 of us?
I'm sorry, Adam. You're a
I'm not
slight
offended
man,
at all.
and I would think.
I am.
Yeah, I think that would be Adam.
Who are you putting for third?
This is a tricky one. It's either you or Simon. I'm going to go for Simon because I know you're quite a gym junkie. So I think at your peak physical, you would be quite in there, yeah.
Okay, so Simon's third. Who have you got for second?
You.
Me. And who's the strongest?
I am. At my peak, I was deadlifting 120 kilos.
Okay. Right, let's go to Adam next. Who do you think is the least strongest?
As a man who regards today as their peak physical condition, I'm going to give myself the moniker of least strong. I am the Kinder Bueno of strength athletics.
Okay.
Just shouldn't be there. It's a chocolate bar. Why is it in a strongman contest? So yeah, there's that. Then I'm probably going to put Simon third.
Okay.
Then you. Then I agree with Duncan's list.
Okay. Well, we got Simon. Simon. What's your list?
Well, we've only known each other for a few years, but back in my 20s, I could run 10 miles at a time. And at one point, I lifted a mini. So I don't know how much a mini weighs. I haven't got a foggiest. It was just for a laugh. So I'm going to put me first, Adam last, Duncan second, and Chris third.
Okay. We all agree with those lists? The only thing we agreed on was that Adam's a wimp. That's it.
I'm a wimp. We agreed that I'm the least strong. Don't think I won't take a second name away again, because I fucking will.
I'll add this though. You lifted a mini once. I used to do 10 reps of 120 kilo deadlifts in sets.
Do you want to change your answer, Simon, or are you sticking with? No,
I'm happy.
Okay.
I would say let's have a lift off now, but unfortunately I've got spinal damage.
Oh, how convenient.
Sorry, Duncan, do you want to change your list, or after hearing about Simon lifting a mini, or?
No.
No? Okay. So are we agreeing to disagree here?
We're going to have to.
Comments, please, who you think is...
Go Team Pearson. If I win that poll, fucking win. Oh, look at me, I'm Simon Sampson. I lifted a mini, and I quote, for a laugh.
With the mini, how did you lift the back end, or?
No, so what happened was it fell off like a steep step.
Okay.
So one of my mates owned a mini when I was younger, and he didn't see the big step on the pavement when he was driving when it was parked, and he drove off it, and he could, he tried to lift it, he couldn't, so I had to get off, and I came in, and it was so I lifted it from the engine side as well, and just wheeled it back on. So.
Oh, you wheeled it back on.
Yeah, so when it was off, because it was hanging off at the edge like this, and the bumper was on the floor, so I just picked it up and pushed it back.
Okay.
There we go. That sounds way less impressive. That sounds more like you pushed a mini.
I lifted a mini. I lifted the front of the mini.
That's not going to make it into the strongman competition, is it? Oh, and it's the mini push.
I nudged it back. It's gone from lifting a mini over his head, like Hercules, to nudging it with his shoulder a little bit.
I don't carry a mini on my head. Let's face it, come on.
I was waiting for the, I got my amazing coordination skills.
It's going to end up that he push started a mini in a minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was a jump start.
I lifted a mini. I pushed a mini. I drove a mini. I once saw a mini. That's where the story starts. And on that bombshell that Simon's never seen a mini, we're gonna move on. We're gonna throw over now to past Adam and past Simon, who are remarkably similar to current Adam and current Simon, only past Adam isn't literally hungover. Long story, let's not go there. We sat down with Martin Duggan, former Newsround presenter and all-time awesome guy, to talk about his work, his life, and just all about him. Me and Simon met him at a journalism conference a few months ago, said, come on our podcast. He said something back. I'm assuming it was yes. The accent, I'll be honest, bit much. But yeah, here is our interview with Martin. Thank you, us from the past, and here we are, us from the future, Simon, from the future, all without a DeLorean. It's amazing. And as promised, we are here with TV's Martin Duggan. TV's Martin Duggan, how the devil are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you both doing? It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm good. I can't speak for Simon. I dare not speak for Simon, but I'm all good down here in the Cronks, Croydon, God's blind spot. How are you, Simon?
I'm very well, mate.
I'm fine. I'm just going to stay in my terrace walls today in Manchester. Watch the rain. You're saying that it's sunny, and you're saying that it's sunny in Croydon. It's not sunny up here, lads. I tell you, the northwest is not kind when it comes to the sunshine.
I've been to Manchester once. It was horrible. It was horrendous.
Oh, really? I love Manchester. What a city.
Oh.
I love it here. In fact, I wouldn't even move back to Glasgow. I would stay in Manchester for the rest of my life if I get the choice to do that.
I'm a fan of Manchester. Simon went to bad Manchester. Simon's not cool enough. Martin. For people over the age of 12 who might not know who you are, introduce yourself to our fine audience.
So I'm Martin, and I've been a Newsround presenter on CBBC for the past 8 years.
You saw me, what would you think? I'm Scottish, I must love haggis. Actually, I think haggis is disgusting. I'm disabled, which means that all my friends must be disabled too. No, I've got lots of friends, and not all of them are disabled. And having a tattoo, some people might think that makes me tough and scary, when really, I love kittens.
And it's been an absolute privilege in that time. Before then, I was part of Channel 4's London 2012 Paralympic presenting lineup. That was my first job in TV. And then after London 2012, there was no work for me, and I was a newbie. So CBBC took me on, and in that time, I've managed to work in various different productions within the BBC, other than Newsround, for BBC 3, BBC 2, BBC 1, doing documentaries, some adult stuff in terms of like the documentaries, the more grown up things that you see on TV every once in a while. But predominantly, my job is to be giving news to 8 to 13-year-olds.
And what's that like? Because you've got serious news like the Ukraine crisis, and it's not the question of dumbing it down, because that's not the right terminology, but you've got to explain it in a way that an 8 to 10-year-olds can actually understand what's going on in the world. So how do you get 8 to 10-year-olds understand what's going on in something like Ukraine?
Well, actually, in a sense, you've kind of answered it yourself. When we were growing up, Simon and Adam, we had the 1 o'clock news, we had the breakfast news, we had the 1 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock and the 10. That's what we would have all the time. And then you would maybe watch news at dinner with your family if your mum and dad or your guardians were watching it at that point. And that's the only access to news that you had. Whereas nowadays, you know, because of social media, because there's rolling 24-hour news, young kids at that age, the 8 to 13-year-olds, and a wee bit younger and a little bit older, they know exactly what's happening in the world because they're constantly seeing stuff on social media. So their knowledge of what's going on is a lot. It's bigger than what we ever had at that age. And actually, you're right, dumbing down is probably the best term not to use, because I find that, like you said, it's not the right term, but actually it's the term that everybody uses. I find that the way that I approach it, the way that I approach my work every day, like the Ukraine crisis, like the Manchester bombings, like COVID that's happened, I just think that, how would you explain it to people in the pub, really? Because I don't think that it actually comes to just speaking to kids like that. The way that I'll tell you, in fact, you know what I'll do? I'll tell you the way that we cover a story. If we're covering the Ukraine crisis, for example, like we did, within the live morning bulletin, we would have a 2-minute sort of VT that would stick to the facts. We wouldn't. A lot of things that happen in BBC News in terms of the network news and a lot of Sky News and all these places is they kind of try and guess what Putin's doing or Volodymyr Zelensky, what he might be doing or whatever. We don't ever try and guess what's happening. We stick to the facts. And I'll give you one example. At the beginning of the Ukraine crisis, the Ukraine war, there was a sort of convoy that was like 30 miles long that Russia was bringing into Ukraine. And basically we mentioned that that was the case, but we didn't mention the sort of details of everything. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't about the death and destruction necessarily, and we didn't have to go into the details of how many people had died and how they died, but they knew exactly what was happening that day. And I think when we make videos for Newsround and it's all about the videos, the pictures that you use, it's all about the language that you use in terms of your scripting, and and you know, you have to really pick what. And I think that's important not just for kids but for adults as well. I think sometimes when you watch BBC News and you watch, no matter what's happening in the world, things can seem a little bit daunting and it can really impact on your day. And a lot of the language that's used isn't for the people that's watching, if you know what I mean. It's very expert-led. So we try and steer away from that. And then what we do is there's lots of so we'll watch the bulletin and then on Newsround Online, which is where we get a lot of our traffic, there's more detailed information within those pages online, within those articles, within those videos that we put up online so that teachers, parents, guardians, kids themselves can go online and find out a little bit more information about what's happening. But I suppose we always appreciate the fact that we don't dumb it down, because they're going to be talking about it in school. They're going to be talking about it to their mum and dads and their parents and their peers.
I'll tell you what surprised me, actually. I didn't know Newsround was still going, to be honest. I mean, it's not, let's face it, I'm not the target audience.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said it's doing the best it's ever done. And I was like, are you sure about that? I went to have a look on the social media feeds and they get hundreds of thousands of views. When Newsround was on for me, it used to be on at 4:30 or 10 to 5 every day or whatever it was. Yeah. And you used to watch it on BBC One, where after, you know, when you got home, you watched the kids' shows and the Newsround came on with John Craven. But now, obviously, because of social media, you can watch it whenever you like. You can, you know, if you subscribe to it or follow it, and you are getting hundreds of thousands of views per clip.
And that was the challenge. Actually, the thing moving it to CBBC from Channel 1 from when we were younger was actually a really, really big move. Because if you think about it, though, guys, right, it might be on BBC One and it might get more eyes on it, but whose eyes are watching it? You know, is it the parents that are watching after a programme and the grannies and the grandpas and the older generation? There's not a lot of kids' eyes on there. So moving it to CBBC guaranteed that you were getting the actual target audience's faces watching it for a start. But actually, if you look at I was looking at the stats before I left, and the stats suggest that just for the website alone, there's like 2 million individual unique hits on the Newsround website a week. But that's just individual. That could be a classroom, so that could be 35 more other faces and whatever. And the reason for that is because Newsrounds, within my time, it's changed so much. Within my time, we've moved from linear TV through to the more digital focus is what we've really sort of changed. And unfortunately, what's also helped it is that unfortunately in the worst situations, Newsround really comes to prominence. So if you look at the Manchester bombings, for example, which was centred around a children's concert where children were targeted in a lot of these kids' back gardens, really. So what happens is in the Ukraine crisis and COVID is that people come to Newsround, not just kids, but parents and teachers and fellow journalists and adults, because sometimes when bad things happen, they just need to be able to make sense of something in a very, very clear, concise way. It's not, you know what I mean? So they go, I'm going to go to Newsround and figure out how this is actually working, because sometimes when you watch adult news or you go on to the BBC News Online, there's a lot of stuff to take in, whereas a lot of people come to Newsround and you see it, you actually see it if you look at the stats, like you see if something bad happens when it's quite complex and quite difficult to get you to wrap your head around what's going on in the world. You see it spike, you know what I mean? You see people coming because people just need to make sense of things in their heads, and I don't think it just applies to a young audience. I think it applies to everybody, all of us, and we all need to try and make sense of some of the weird and wonderful and crazy and bad things that happen in the world, and that's how Newsround is also coming into prominence. And we're obviously, schools are noticing more because of the COVID pandemic. Schools were using us quite a lot when kids were at home, and certain kids were in classrooms if their parents were key workers and whatever. So we're getting used. So we're basically spiked off the back of, you know, a lot of things going wrong in the world. That's never something to be happy about, but at least we're happy that we were there to sort of give people that information that they need at that time.
How does that feel looking back? Like, it's been for you 8 years. You've seen it go from analog, come up the verticals, hit the online, and you've essentially been the John Suchet of Generation Z. How would you feel looking back, and would you do anything differently?
Looking back, it's been, to the change, it's been the way that we did our job has completely changed. Like, I remember we used to focus on the 420 bulletin, the one that you were talking about, Simon, and we were still already on CBBC at that point. We used to focus on the 420, where it would be, we'd have a morning meeting, and then we would talk about ideas for the 420, and then we'd have to go and phone contributors. So we'd come up with an idea, we'd have to phone contributors, we would have to, you know, go out and film something, and then we'd have to go and do interviews, and then we'd have to come back and edit it in time for the 420 to get it out. But the problem with that is that lots of kids, when they come back from school, don't watch CBBC at that time or whatever, because they're either an after school club, or they're watching Power Rangers, or they're watching, you know, something else, because they've just done with a school day. They don't really want to watch the news. So that was a big mistake, really, because we were focusing all our attention on the wrong thing. So what Newsround has done is that we used to have 3 bulletins a day, and we've condensed it to 1. So we've got 1 bulletin that's on at 7:40 every morning on CBBC, and that's 8 minutes long. So we've basically taken all the bulletins and put them into 1. And then what basically that is, that's got to be up online by 8:15 in the morning, so that when the kids come into school, if the teachers want to put it on, that's the primary focus. And it's been amazing, actually, the stuff that I've managed to cover in that time. So I've covered so many different stories, and I've been really lucky. I've been to, so from a sporting point of view, I've covered the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, the Paralympic Games in Rio, the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in Australia. I've been to the refugee camp in Cali. I've been to talk about climate change in Fiji. I've been to the forest fires in Australia, and I've been to CERN, one of the Large Hadron Collider that's in Switzerland, between the border in Switzerland and France, talking about quantum physics to 8-year-olds. Now, if you think war's difficult to talk about to any 13-year-old, you should try talking about mass and molecules and atoms and quantum physics. That, for me, was difficult. So really, in that time, the way that the audience take in their information has changed. Actually, the audience behaviour towards information, audiences with tablets and social media and what they're into. Because Newsround was great because I was able to be like a journalist, like a news presenter in a sense. You'd have to do those really hard stories, of course, you know. Also, at the same time, it was great to follow kids' trends. Loom bands, do you remember when loom bands were out?
Oh, effing loom bands.
TikTok's just come into prominence over the past 5 years. And then obviously with Newsround, you're never ever far away from a panda story. I can't tell you the amount of times that I get sent up to Edinburgh Zoo because the PR people at Edinburgh Zoo thought that the pandas were finally about to have a baby. It actually got to the point where I thought that the pandas, when I was looking at the pandas in Edinburgh Zoo, I'd look and see if there was zips in the back of them, because I was convinced it was just men and women in a costume pretending to be a panda, because they never produced any babies in that time. I was convinced that the PR people would just dress people up as pandas.
You're endangered. Get on with it. Frankly, if you put me in a cage with anything in a week, I'll give it a go.
I would love to put Adam in a cage with Katie Price for a week.
That would be, honestly, that's TV gold. There's a TV show in that. Pretty pissed off with pandas, to be honest. See if you're not active enough to procreate, away you go. Like, that's the way I see it.
So you got to ask yourself as well, if you're in a zoo all day and you got nothing else to do, what would you do?
Exactly.
This is exactly my point. I'm in a cage for a week and I'm bored.
It's just like, you're not even willing to, if you wake up in the morning, you're sitting there eating your bamboo, you know, somebody comes in and gives you food every once in a while, the female panda there, if you can't even be asked just to get it on, away you go then.
And ironically, in Chinese medicine, ground panda penis is an aphrodisiac.
Can I ask a question? How do we go from the UK to panda porn?
Who knows? Subliminally, this is always what was supposed to happen. It's always supposed to come to this. I've been dying to talk about this for years. Honestly, pandemonium. Sorry, bad joke.
Hey, we got here, Simon, because I'm good at my job.
Conan, so why Newsround? Why have you left Newsround?
I always promised myself that when I took because I didn't really want to work in children's TV. Like, I'm a working class Glaswegian lad where, you know, like everybody else, I never saw myself as a children's presenter. I just used to think it was always like, you know, reading out birthday cards and singing happy-go-lucky songs and dressing up in lots of bright green and bright pink things and whatever. And it just wasn't my thing. But Newsround was obviously very different. I made a promise to myself that if I took this job, I'd stay for a generation. And because obviously, my sort of, if I had a crystal ball and I was able to kind of predict and give myself prominence, I would like to take a generation with me and then let them move up with me in my progression with my career, so that it feels like the audience have got somebody that they've followed and I've followed them throughout their lives and they've followed me. And I think it's really weird in the children's TV world and actually working with the BBC, because if you stay in children's TV too long, if you end up turning into a Teletubby, do you know what I mean? Where people think that you can't do anything else but work in children's TV, and then essentially it ruins your career, in my opinion. That's my thoughts of it. It's a brilliant place to learn your trades and to get all the tools that you need to broadcast live and all that, and working with kids is a challenge in itself. And then obviously, as you said before, like telling stories in a simple, an easy way that anybody can digest and take in. So I'm grateful for that. But then also I left because I'm quite frustrated with the BBC as a whole, because the way that they talk about diversity and the way that they talk about disability and the way that they go about their business and the language that they use and the things that they say they're going to do, that basically they just don't do it.
Well, there goes your job at Country File.
Well, isn't that a shame? You know, I don't have the fruity jumpers like John Craven to get away with it, to be honest.
Don't have them yet, Martin. Don't have them yet.
Don't have them yet. Listen, I'm working from the bottom up, so my socks are really fruity, and then we'll just go up that way as I get older. So,
and then ironically, back to kids' TV, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's one of those weird, like, what happened to Martin Duggan 20 years ago. But yeah, so it was. I had a discussion recently where I knew that it was my time to leave Newsround, and I knew that my time had passed. You know, when you walk into somewhere like an office, like Newsround's office, and I see new presenters coming and going, and yet I was still there. You get a feeling sometimes. I was sitting after Christmas this year, and I was just thinking to myself, I need to get out, because if I don't get out now, then I'm in trouble. But I had a lot of discussions with different executives from BBC and a lot of people that work in the diversity team, you know, in terms of their role. They seem to create these roles for people, like these head of diversity, lead of disability, talent lead, and all these sort of things. And then it was getting quite frustrating, because when I was in the office at Newsround, they had this scheme called the 50-50 scheme, which is where it was all about sort of, it's the BBC's way of controlling, throughout the whole of the BBC, it's their way of making sure that they understand that we use people from different backgrounds and different groups and whatever within the content that they put out to better represent people in the UK. And that's fine, these schemes, but at the same time, I'd be sitting in the office and somebody would say, "Oh, we didn't have a disabled person in there," or "We didn't have somebody from a Caribbean background. We didn't have somebody from an African background." And I just had to sit back one day and I was just like, "What are you doing? Like, what? Like, you're sitting here having a discussion about a disabled person as if they're not a person, as if it's just a commodity, as if I am a commodity that you just need to present and pull back in so that you can get your stats. I'm not a stat, actually. What maybe to a corporation I am, but really I'm sat here in front of you as a human being, like." And that was quite frustrating. And then, you know, you would hear Tim Davie talking about the BBC's big plans to get more disabled people on screen and working in production behind the camera. And if I'm being honest, you know, within that, the 8 to 10 years that I've worked in the industry and the 8 years that I've worked within the BBC as a corporation, I have never seen a change big enough to make me think, no. "Oh, that's fantastic."
Well,
this is what I found.
That's what I do, because I've been there. I've been BBC, a BBC guy, quote unquote, for 12 years, and I much like you two, am sick of all the diversity panels that either don't mention disability or mention it once in passing. I'm somewhat bored of the promises. I think we can all agree that the June Sarpong experiment failed, and failed epically. And if they want to meet these targets by 2024, if they keep going the way they are and if the increase happens at the pace it's happening, they won't get there till 2052.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you with that. And I think that the stats have shown recently that actually the amount of disabled people that are being hired for the top jobs or, you know, representative on screen has actually gone down in the past. Like, there's a few reasons for that. There's also, because the way that I look at it is, if you look at ethnicity, for example, right, disability is going its very own world. So when you talk about diversity, it's really easy to put you in one box. So if you think about ethnicity, where you come from and your colour, the colour of your skin or your background or your religion and all that sort of thing, you know, that's a person who is from a Caribbean background or from a Asian background or from a African background. But then when you talk about disability, the spectrum is so wide, right, that you're talking about sensory issues, you're talking about blind and deaf, you're talking about physical issues, you're talking about loads of different things. So you can't put it in one box. So what I've done is I've decided to go freelance now. So I'm freelance now, and it's amazing. A double-edged sword at the minute, guys. It was my time to leave Newsround and the BBC at the time.
Let's see what are you doing at the moment then.
So I'm freelancing at the moment, and what I've decided. So I've only been 2 weeks in the freelancing world again, and I am loving it, because I tell you what, I'm doing nothing at the moment. I'm obviously in talks with a lot of. I've done some stuff for. There's a project called Dream Machine, which is be going across schools and museums across the country, and basically I'll be hosting a series of videos about the senses, and it's teaching sort of high school kids about how our senses that we have and how it helps us establish ourselves within the world, really, in our place within it. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that because it's so far removed from what I've been doing, but not so far. But then also I've been in talks with different production companies like Channel 4, of maybe going back to my old roots with Channel 4, which would be nice. It'd be nice to come back to there, because I always felt that I was more suited to that. What I would really like, and I'm speaking to Hits Radio, you know, about maybe potentially getting on there with them. And if you're asking me what the dream is basically I do want to become like a household name within television, and I see myself in the more factual entertainment stuff, doing a wee bit more comedy within the factual entertainment worlds, rather than the newsy aspect. I couldn't sit outside a courtroom and you know, talk about what's happening in a court. That's not me at all.
What does your daughter think about it?
Actually, do you know what? She didn't give a shit about whether I worked in Newsround or not. Actually, one of the funniest stories is that Jessica was like in year 4 in primary school, and I went to a fair. Now, what those school fairs that they have, absolutely on earth. Those things, I hate them. See, if they're going to send me to hell when I die, they'll send me to soft play area, Primark, and school fairs. That's where they'll send me for all of eternity. And basically, I was in there looking at some trinket that I was going to buy at this fair, and the head teacher of Jessica's school came up to me. He's like, "Are you Martin from Newsround?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What are you doing here? Are you doing like a talk or something?" And I was like, "No, like, I've met you before. Like, my daughter Jessica goes to your school." And he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Martin, do you know that Jessica watches Newsround every morning and she has not cracked a light to anyone that you're her dad?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "No, that's not true. She loves me, man. She's proud of me." Sort of thing. She said proud. And then, like, we were walking home that day, and I was like, "Jessica, do you watch Newsround at school?" And she's kind of like kicking the grass. Do you know what I mean? Like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you see me on the TV at school? Like, do you see me on there?" "Yeah." And I was like, "And do you tell your friends, like, that I'm your dad, or do you tell anybody that that's your dad on TV?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Why? Why not?" And she was like, "Oh, because I don't want people to treat me any differently." And even at a young age, Jessica was always at that kind of, you know, I don't really care that my dad's, but she did care, but she didn't. She was worried about how it was going to impact on her school world, like how people were going to treat her, or whether she was going to get a hard time, or whether she was going to make friends or whatever. So when I told her that I was leaving Newsround, she was just like, "All right, good luck."
Go on then. What's the best story you ever covered?
I got sent to Fiji to cover the rising sea levels in the South Pacific due to climate change. And I loved that story because it was a story, obviously, that we're all sort of engulfed in at the minute. But it was just to see how people in Fiji live their lives, and the fact that the things that we do right now, I don't know whether you're a believer in climate change or whether you're not, and that's fine. But it was the first time that I'd ever been to somewhere where I could see the impacts of climate change in front of my eyes. I could see it in the way that people live their lives. And do you know what? The thing that I found is that it doesn't matter how these kids were brought up, whether they were different to kids in the UK or across the world. All of them had the same attitude when it came to global warming and climate change. They all had the same beliefs and the same sort of determination to change things going forward for their future. So that was amazing.
Well, Martin, we need to bring this bad boy into land. If people want to find you or learn more about you without actually physically stalking you, illegal, don't do it, what can they do?
Well, you can always head to my Instagram page, which is Martin Duggan 11. I use Martin Duggan 11 because that was my basketball number back in the day. And then it's Marty Duggan, Marty, M-A-R-T-I, Duggan 2012 on Twitter.
Brilliant.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for coming on, Martin. It's always good to chat with you and hang out with you. And we'll have to do it again, not on webcams, maybe in a pub.
Oh man, that'd be brilliant. Definitely. You're getting the first round in?
Absolutely.
All right, brilliant. I'll hold you to that. I will definitely hold you to that. Brilliant.
And there we go. That was past Adam and past Simon with past Martin Duggan. Moving on. Last Sunday, that would be the 15th, was PDA Day. This month, the month of May, is actually PDA Month. But yeah, last Sunday was the day, in huge air quotes. Duncan, tell us all about PDA Day.
For those who don't know, I mean, my other channel, PDA Dad UK, is obviously about being a parent to my daughter who is a PDA. PDA is Pathological Demand Avoidance, which isn't the best name in the world, but it's what it's called, and you kind of have to work with it. It's considered to be a rare form of autism, but my experience has been that more and more people are starting to identify it in either themselves or in their kids. And the PDA Society in the UK are just doing an incredible job of raising awareness, but also really supporting people through getting diagnosis if it's required. The tricky thing is only 30% of the UK will recognise PDA. 70% of the country just will diagnose autism, which is the area I'm in. We managed to get it listed in the notes as PDA strategies will help. but there's no official diagnosis here for PDA. So the PDA Society do an amazing job, and Sunday was PDA Day, where people were raising money for the PDA Society, and I got to be involved with the Celebrate PDA Day Summit, which was held on Clubhouse, which I haven't used before, and got acquainted with that, and it was just fantastic. It was just a really exciting time, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. And there's ways you can donate to the PDA Society, and if you want to find out more, hit the PDA Society website. We'll put the links in the description. But they're a fantastic organisation, and they've really helped me.
Are there any trigger signs that we need to be aware of?
PDA is the need for control. So basically, I don't know what your understanding of autism is, but basically autism and anxiety kind of walk hand in hand. For a PDA, the way they subconsciously work through their anxiety is to try and maintain control of the situation. So the best way you can control a situation is to go, I'm not going to do that. You're telling me to do that. Well, I'm in control. I'm not doing it. So there's a lot of strategies around it. There's a lot of traits. The PDA Society website has a list of traits on there. And again, we'll put the link in the description. But it's basically, it can be I would say it's probably the hardest form of autism to parent, because you're constantly having to rework your strategy, and you have to learn parenting from the ground up, which you pretty much have to do being a parent to an autistic kid anyway. But it takes it to just another level when you're taking into account this whole how to stop presenting demands when you still need to get things done, and you don't want your other siblings murdered or anything like that. It becomes quite challenging.
I think there are some triggers that you need to look out for on how people react to things, and when they say no, and they just carry on and carry on and carry on, and it is difficult.
It is. You've got to reframe all your demands. So you're trying to disguise them so that, for my daughter, the example I always give is, rather than saying tidy your room, it's what would you like to put away first? Where should we put this? So you're actually achieving the goal, but you're also allowing them a feeling of control within it. It's a tricky thing, because my daughter learned that after the second time. Hang on, he just wants me to clean my room. And so that became a point of, I'm not going to do it. And you're constantly having to rejig things and work strategies out. It's really challenging. And I think what's really important is it's probably as challenging as it is for me as a parent. What goes through my daughter's head and the turmoil that's going on inside there is at another level that I can't comprehend. And that's what it comes back to. And I'm very fortunate. I've managed to speak to a lot of adult PDAs and get a lot of input and advice on how to do things. And again, PDA Society is run by the CEO is an autistic with a PDA son. There's a number of members of the society who are themselves PDAs, and yeah, they do a really good job. So what we'll do is I'll pop up here a list of the traits that that are generally associated with PDA, and if it's something you're thinking that might answer some questions for me with my kids, hop onto the website, get in touch with the PDA Society. They are fantastic and they will help.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Duncan. I know sometimes it's quite hard to kind of bare one's soul and talk about these kind of things in this kind of format and environment. But that's why we set up the Grumpy Gits to begin with, to have these important chats, as well as do sort of like the light-hearted, oh, isn't Adam a pussy kind of conversations. So, that's what he said, don't tweet me, it's true. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And now we're gonna move on to a new segment. I know, me either. We're all about conversation here at the Grumpy Gits, and we're acutely aware that the bigger our following gets, the more of a community we build, and we wanted to get the community involved. So we're gonna go over now to Mr. Leasmith at the Grumpy Gits communication station to see what you've been tweeting.
It's not a community or a hub or anything like that. I just went on Twitter, but we got the idea after seeing a few tweets about train journeys and actually hearing about Simon's story. A couple of people have had run-ins, so we asked a question. So basically, a lady called Jenny Whitmore won. How is this okay? My husband travelled at the weekend with my 2 autistic sons. One of them is a selective mute with anxiety as well. They booked seats and travelled on Great Western Railway, is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Yet the train was full up and they could not be seated together. Neither son can travel alone. So my husband had no choice but to sit in first class. When the conductor came round, they were charged another £30 for sitting there. The conductor said there were no seats left together on the train. How is it fair that they had to pay more money? It's not their fault. They are unable to travel alone. Can anyone advise, please, as Great Western are not interested? What are thoughts on this one?
There is an app. We're talking about social things. You can actually book special assistance on the app now, on a passenger app for trains. I've used it once and it has worked. It's the only time I've used it so far. You say what your needs are and they make sure that you are looked after. Now, I'm guessing Jenny, thank you, weren't aware of this app or haven't used this app, but for me it was successful for the first time I used it. And you can put in things like anxiety, autism, physical disabilities, wheelchair users, so on and so forth. And that's what I would recommend. You can't book tickets through it, but it does get sent to the train person who's dealing with your trip. And so they will make special arrangements for you on what you need.
Put a link in the description for that.
Cool.
Second story was from our friend Beth Tastic.
Ah, Beth.
Yep. Avent West Coast. So we are on your Euston to Glasgow train and you haven't just double booked our seats, you've triple booked them. How can this happen? Now there are people wondering why we're in their seats when they are also our seats. Upset, kids stressed, out now. Obviously with some backstory, she's got disabled children as well.
Yeah.
So obviously these people coming up, not just one set of people, but two sets of people saying that you're in our seats. Thoughts on this one?
How does that happen?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of overselling, and it happens a lot in the transportation industry. Trains get overbooked, flights get oversold, yada yada yada. But triple booking is just real unacceptable behaviour, and then it creates this innate hostility that doesn't need to be there. And I always book seats when I get on the train, and I've rarely had to ask someone to get out of my seat. I did it once, and this lady was just like, well, where am I going to sit? And I don't care, love, not my problem. On the platform, take the pick. So, yeah, I don't get why companies do it, because it's appalling customer service, point one. But then they've also pretty much got you hamstrung, haven't they? It's either like it or walk, right? So,
yeah.
not a fan of this at all.
But it invites confrontation as well, doesn't it? Because the first thing, if you've got your ticket and you're walking across to someone, you're immediately, you're not going to be particularly nice about someone that's sat in your seat. You wouldn't know, would you? You wouldn't know that it's double or triple booked. You just think someone's sat there after you've reserved it. So it's increasing the chances of hostility towards, and I don't know what those people were like who came along and said to Beth and her kids that you're in my seat, but they could have been rude. They could have been football fans. It could have been someone that was angry or violent, or it could have been anybody really. So I don't think it's acceptable. And in this day and age with a computer system, how can you double book and triple book a seat?
It's just a vanity overselling, hoping that people won't turn up or will not turn up.
Yeah. Final tweet. This is from Jordan B Peterson. Sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Take a look. What are your thoughts on this? And Jordan B Peterson, we'll put a picture of him, and
that's what I was about to... Have you seen Jordan B Peterson? Because he's not exactly Brad Pitt.
I don't think we should focus. I mean, it's a good point, Duncan, but I don't think we should focus on what he looks like. I think we should cut just on a comment as if just one man has said this. I think it's completely, it's unnecessary. And for me, I mean, that is not unattractive.
No, she's gorgeous. That's just ridiculous statement.
I mean, I'd expect that comment to come from a 15-year-old boy that buys Nuts magazines. Adam, what's your views on this one?
I always get really miffed when tweets like that come up, because Jordan Peterson's a smart man and a really good communicator, and I think this is like well beneath his normal standard of work. But I always say that we've historically and culturally we've done the word beauty a huge disservice by trying to quantify it. And no, I think she's perfectly beautiful and is also allowed to wear what she wants. So I'm not on board with this dress for your body type nonsense either. I think we should all dress how we feel comfortable. So I'm not on this train at all. I think it's dead wrong. And as you said, Chris, I'd expect that kind of skullduggery from some kind of edgy shitlord teenager on the internet.
But I think it's the damage that, I'm going to be honest, mate, I think it's the damage that opinion does. My daughter is 11, and if she's had a few too many carbs in her meal in the evening, she'd say to me, no, I've got a paunch, Dad, I'm getting too fat. She's 11 and she's already concerned about her body image. I think it's so important that people like this stand up and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm beautiful as I am, and I'm going to get on the front of a magazine and show off my body for what it is because I'm proud of who I am. And I want my daughter to look up to people like that. We've got so much in this world that is constantly badgering to be to a certain standard. And I think you can liken it to ableism. Because the whole reason that, we have a problem with ableism is because there's a certain standard in the world that's unacceptable, but yet is promoted. And that's not right.
So
and here we have a standard of beauty that is considered acceptable and is not right. I think that's really wrong.
So next week, are we going to see you in a mankini?
No, because I'm not making that choice. That's not what I'm saying. The fact that I wouldn't wear it doesn't mean she shouldn't.
Let's not forget as well, she's in a swimsuit.
It's a swimsuit magazine, isn't it, as well?
It's exactly right.
It is.
No,
I own a mankini. I'm going to wear it next week.
No. Please don't.
Yes! Comments, tweet it, whatever. If we can get enough comments and tweets, Adam will wear a mankini next episode.
If we get enough comments, hashtag Adam Mankini.
Yes!
I'll do it. Thank you, Chris Leasmith, over at our communication station in Grumpy Gits headquarters. However, we thought since it's a community segment, we'd throw it to the community, you lovely people. What should we call it? Send us your ideas, down in the comments, tweet us, DM us, write to us, send homing pigeons and swimsuit magazines, and we'll take the best suggestion, and that is what we shall call the segment. We're going to bring this show into land now with our next segment, which ironically is called What Happens Next? I know, paradox. Chris Lee Smith, what happens next?
Right, so first clip of What Happens Next.
I told him I could backflip. Wait for it.
What happens next? So let's start with Duncan.
Oh, jeez. I reckon he flips it up and he kicks him in the jaw and possibly breaks some bones and teeth.
Okay. Adam, what's your guess for this one?
I also reckon that he kicks his friend in the face. And then an eagle swoops down. No.
that eagle's playing a part again. Simon, what's your guess for this one?
I think the dad goes, you must be fucking joking, I'm not doing that. He just falls straight in his face.
Okay, falls straight in his face. Let's find out.
Oh my goodness.
Not what I thought was going to happen.
Is it just me, or is that something you can see Adam doing?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so second clip. What happens next? Adam, let's start with you first.
An eagle swoops in and takes him.
I was thinking that.
No, don't be ridiculous. This one, I reckon a hippo comes in like camera right and just drops him up.
Okay, so hippo is
Hippo attack. Hippo attack.
Hippo attack. Okay, Simon, what's your guess for this one?
Teleportation. I think he disappears and reappears on the other side of the road. No, I don't. I think he's just moved away from the rail, and I think a car comes smashing in just as he just got out of the way.
Okay, Duncan, what's your guess?
That's actually a good answer, but I reckon something reverberated, and as he walks under this tree, a coconut or something's going to fall from it and scon him on the head.
Okay, let's find out.
Oh!
I think I should get half a point, because that car sort of looks like a hippo.
Okay, so next clip. What happens next? Let's start with Simon.
Well, he's trying to take his shoe off, isn't he, while he's dancing? So that's not going to work. So I think he's going to fall over and probably crack his head on the pool table or onto the wall or something.
Head injury. Okay, Duncan, what do you think happens next?
I think he's going to go backwards into that colossal mound of stuff, and it's all going to come falling down on top of him.
Okay. So probably another head injury. Adam?
Yeah, I'm going for head injuries today.
I think he's going to take his shoe off, throw it, and it's going to hit something on the pool table at a camera shot, and it's going to start some kind of Rune Gilbert machine, and cool stuff's going to happen.
That sounds
okay, let's find out.
Oh!
He's
literally fell through the floor. Final clip.
Oh, I might have seen this one.
What happens next?
Well, I think we can guess what's going to happen. He's going to snap his arm off and take him for a death roll.
Okay. Duncan?
I was going to say the same. I actually think he's going to get completely slammed by that. Like the jaws are going to shut and he's going to sit there flapping about like a fish out of water.
Adam?
I reckon the man bites the crocodile and does a death roll.
You think he reverses the role?
Yeah,
on one of the world's oldest predators. He's gonna
own it.
I'm assuming a small Taiwanese man is going to death roll a fully grown crocodile.
Mate.
I would have said that an eagle swooping in makes more sense than what you've just said there.
Mate,
but let's find out.
To quote our good friend Simon Sansome, I'm allowed an opinion.
Let's find out if you're right.
Oh, is that it?
That was the very definition of an anticlimax.
Oh, that was not exciting at all.
And that's the end of what happens next.
I love that segment, and I say it a lot because I do love that segment. We nearly saw a child die on a disability-related podcast, and ultimately, that is the gift that we'll just keep on giving. And on that note, that brings us to the end of the show. What did you think? Let us know. Follow us on the socials. If you want to have a crack at naming the communication station, go for it. Got a topic for the communication station, go for it. Any comments or feedback, absolutely more than welcome. We're across all the socials. We're currently harmonising all our branding. Can't wait for you all to see that. It's all very exciting.
I think it's awesome. I am stoked with it.
I'm really excited.
And on that note, we must bid you all adieu. So, from me, Adam Pearson, from him, Simon Sansome, him, Duncan Casburn, and him, Chris Leasmith, we'll see you all on the next episode. Stay grumpy.
The Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.